Hi again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of RV Business Capital Talk, sponsored by Eric Sell. I'm Rick Kessler. With me, as always, Sherman Goldenberg, and we're from RV Business. And joining the two of us today, we have Jessica Turner. Jessica is the president of the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, a position she's had since 2018. So, congratulations on your 6-year anniversary, Jessica, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thanks. Yeah, it was January, January 2019, I guess. So it is exactly 6 years, like this week.
Go ahead, Sherm.
Well, just to point out to the viewers that she's in Baltimore. I was curious, and yeah, and I'm not. And
Well, we're
very-
based in DC, our office, but we live in Baltimore that got like more snow than we've ever gotten the past couple days. So not only did we have the kids home for the holiday for 3 weeks, then we got an extra 3 days off for a snow day. So as you can tell, the lack of sleep and time with children under 3 has really worn on me.
and I'm in the Elkhart, Indiana area, and I always what town do you say you're from?
Well, I live in a suburb of Toledo, Ohio.
There you go. Yeah.
Jessica, please give us a nice little overview of the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable.
Sure.
Um, our RV industry, I mean, we know that the RV Industry Association and the RV Dealers Association are members, but please tell us more about the roundtable.
Sure. So we are a coalition of every outdoor recreation business association that covers about 110,000 American businesses. So everything from the associations you mentioned to marine manufacturers to guides and outfitters for climbing and paddling, to skiers, bikers, hikers, snowmobilers, hunting, fishing, really everything you can imagine. And it's a special coalition because for the first time, we've brought together all of the business trade associations that care deeply about getting people outside and outdoor recreation to work on the things that bring us together and that lift all ships, for a recreation pun. But we have a ton in common. I'd say 90% of what those associations work on, we have in common. And so, how can we be better about communicating that to partners, to the industry, to elected officials and the administration? And then where we have things that differ, that's why trade associations are so important and so special because they are very specifically focused on their, industry like RVIA and RVDA, who are amazing trade associations that we get to work with.
When you take all of those members, there's about 70 or so, I believe. So what's the mission? What do you do with those memberships?
So we're primarily focused on funding, access, and infrastructure for outdoor recreation of all types. So again, not focused on like a unique trail or trailhead conflict between maybe the horse pack and the bikers, but really on funding overall and infrastructure overall. So a great example is 2 years after I started, and infrastructure being one of the things that brought all these entities together, we were able to pass the biggest funding, law in the history of outdoor recreation on infrastructure, the Great American Outdoors Act, by bipartisan support signed by President Trump and his last administration. And that was a ton of heavy lifting for all the ORR members, but just an awesome way we would come together and say, yes, the maintenance backlog is real on our federal lands. It's impacting our visitors. It's impacting our businesses. Let's make it better and let's work together to do that. So that's a really great real world example of how what brings us together has turned into policy.
Well, that's a good segue to more recent legislation that you guys helped get
Yeah.
passed through Congress and signed into law, and that's the Explore Act. Please tell us a little bit about that one.
I mean, what a amazing way to end the year. If anyone is really geeky and wonky on politics and wants to watch the video, I'll send you the link. It was one of the most surprising, I think, moments on the Senate floor, probably in years. Senators were floored at what happened. We were able to, amidst a potential government shutdown, the last day Congress was in session, the chaos of sort of the funding of the government and everything going on, we were able to pass with unanimous consent the largest recreation package, the first ever, only recreation package in America's history. And I think there's two things about this that are really special. One is the policy, of which there's 300 pages. So it's very deep and very real impact, right, to RVers and campers and bikers and hikers and, again, all those entities and businesses. And that's really special and important, and it's been decades in the making. The second piece of it is just the idea and then kind of the value proposition that now, yes, we're a $1.2 trillion industry. I'm sure your viewers have seen and heard those numbers, but what does that mean? That's what this means. That means that we get our own bill. It's not the farm bill. It's not an energy package. It's not a public lands wilderness package. It's our own thing for recreation. That changes policies and management procedures and modernizes things and simplifies processes so that businesses can work better to get more people outside, and that there's access for veterans who haven't had it, or fourth graders, get free passes to parks for the first time. It's really revolutionary in just the way it was done. And what I love is a bill of this magnitude is never passed by unanimous consent. So unanimous consent is like for renaming a post office, right? Sure, like that sounds good. I'm not going to oppose. This was done both in the House and in the Senate by unanimous consent. That means that, and if these names mean anything to you, Bernie Sanders, right, and Mike Lee, or Ted Cruz and AOC, voted for the bill. And I think that is the beauty and the power of recreation, and that's what brings me to work every day. So excited to work on this.
Jessica, how do you explain something going through with that kind of support during these crazy times?
I think the outdoors is a great unifier, and maybe one activity unifies people. Maybe camping is a great unifier. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or independent. You like camping; it's important. But when you add in hunting and horseback riding and fishing and skiing and paddling and who doesn't want those things? I think the other piece is, like, we weren't saying we need billions more in federal funding. Sure, that would be awesome. That's not going to be, there's a lot of reasons why that wouldn't happen. And we're saying we need a better management tools for our federal lands and waters to manage recreation. And we need better ways for gateway communities and rural communities to really benefit from these amazing impacts. And they need to plan and strategize. We need businesses to have better, more streamlined processes. They should not be spending all of their time trying to figure out a permit, like that should be pretty clear how to get people outside. And like, we need to expand parking lots, right? So your industry knows this more than anyone. There right now, there's reasons why parking lots can't be expanded in and around parks or forests. And now we have a law that directs the agencies to expand parking lots to fit bigger RVs and pullouts and more people, and the people that might be having horse trailers or they're towing their, ATVs. And so I think the beauty of this, and the reason why you get something like this done, just like GAOA, which was done, the American Outdoors Act, in the middle of an international pandemic and one of the, most dramatic election seasons, right, we've seen in 2020, that was the only thing that got done. So you're starting to see this, I think, repetitive opportunity for outdoor to come in as a great unifier, as something that has very little, if none, no one coming against that. No one's coming out against outdoor recreation. And I think we're able to show the economic impact. So, Sherman, when you tell someone this is a $1.2 trillion industry, it's 5 million jobs, and in your state, it's XYZ, like, who's not going to want to grow that? So we're definitely in a golden age of having the economic data, more people knowing and understanding the impact of getting outside, especially through the COVID years. And then now legislators who have done Great American Outdoors for us and Explore Act, and they're coming out of that saying, we've never been thanked so much for a bill. Usually you pass a bill, people hate you for it, right? Because it's usually divisive. And then even if people liked the bill, they come in at you the next day. This is what I want next. This is what you have to do for me next. Well, what we did was, at RV businesses, RV dealers, they send in thank you notes, and they're continuing to. The REI and the Bass Pro, like, they're sending in thank you notes. And that means a lot to members of Congress. And they literally call, I get members of Congress calling me, what can we do for you next? So now they're asking us what we want next, as opposed to us going into them. So I think we're set up for, a lot of success legislatively, especially in the public lands area. And, going into a new administration, new Congress, I think is a great opportunity to come together and think about what's in our next recreation package.
Considering the unanimity that you're flourishing on, apparently at this point, the transition in administration should be smooth as well, evidently.
Yeah, certainly. The agencies are directed by law to carry out what just passed. So, if the new Park Service director doesn't like expanding
Mhm.
campgrounds. They have to do it, so, but I also think, it's something we worked on the Trump administration last time, around Great American Outdoors Act. They're trying to reauthorize that. That will be one of the things we work on next Congress. So they're still thinking about that. And, Governor Burgum, the DOI nominee for secretary, is a close friend of ours. And he created an Office of Outdoor Recreation in North Dakota after coming to one of our events that a lot of RV CEOs spoke at and sort of convinced him like recreation is really important. He went back 2 days later and created an Office of Recreation in North Dakota. So I feel good about him and what he's going to do for recreation and certainly the implementation of this law.
Very good, very good, Rick.
Well, Jessica, there's so many questions. I mean, this is such a huge, huge, huge topic. Um, the other initiatives for 2025, especially with the new administration, what might those be?
So we do a lot that's just like not administration and not Congress focused at all. But if we're just talking about policies, I think there's the really interesting things with Congress around, GAOA reauthorization, BLM concessionaire authority, like, opening up more business opportunities around public lands, streamlining things, implementation of Explore Act. I think on the agency side, there's always a ton to do with the land management agencies prioritizing recreation more, making it easier, elevating it, cutting red tape. That is a lot that can be done through policy. I would say on the flip side, like I know most of our associations and businesses are worried about tariffs, right? So I think there's a real difficult conversation about how tariffs will impact, US consumers and products, even if they're made in the US because of the components coming in. So I think we've got a lot of great things to work on and look forward to. And I think we've got some real headwinds that, need to be sorted out. And there's a ton of education that needs to go on there because I think there's a sense that if a product is made in America, like most RVs in Elkhart, that they're not going to be subject to tariffs. And that is just 100% wrong. In fact, sometimes they're subject to more tariffs because they have more components. Think about how many components an RV is coming in. And there's many, many issues. And Samantha from RVIA could talk your off about this too. It would be a great session. She's super smart on this. But then, there's the retaliatory tariffs. So other countries saying, and this is what the boating industry struggled from the last Trump administration, was the retaliatory tariffs. So they got cut off from the European market with exports. So it's a really serious issue. I know it's something everyone's thinking about and talking about. And what we're talking about ORR is how can we take all these stories about awesome American-made products and American businesses and even businesses that are American, but they're outsourcing, the manufacturing to Taiwan or, other countries that aren't China. How can we tell that story better to ensure the next administration knows what they're doing and perhaps takes more of a scalpel approach to the tariffs as opposed to like a broad hammer? Because there's definitely a place for tariffs and there's a reason for them. There's a use for them, but like in our industry, it's pretty devastating what we're expecting to happen.
Okay. I don't mean to jump around on you, but I do want to circle back. You mentioned expanding parking lots as one example of some of the details, the benefits that these packages will provide.
Yep.
Specifically for the RV industry, but also the camping industry. What are some other examples that we're gonna see down the pike here?
So I think there's these like broad policies that will, make it easier for everyone. So I'll give you a few examples of those, and then I'll drill down, to RV specific. Electronic passes. So think about your America the Beautiful pass. It gets you into park and a forest and refuge. Right now, you can't buy those on the internet, and usually you can't show them electronically. Like you need a printed version, or you need you get it in the mail. I mean, what if you decide you're in your RV, you're in Utah, and you're like, hey, I'm going to go to a national park today. That it's like almost impossible for that to happen, right? And for that to happen seamlessly, and for that to happen, in a way that you get through the line quickly, and you know how much you're going to pay. So I think there's just like broad, let's make that process easier. That's going to help everyone. There's a data management provision which directs the agencies to just get us better data. We have no idea. They count toilet paper rolls in the Forest Service for some of their data analysis, and then that model is completely different than how the Park Service counts and Army Corps. And so when you're comparing agencies and visitation, there's really no model. It's not helpful for the industry to build out businesses even around, because it's not the way that we would probably, determine data from a business perspective. So it's not usable. It's very costly. Let's get all that data in one spot. Let's use modern technology, 21st century, data analysis, and let's really understand where people are and what they're doing so we can better manage the places that we love. And I think some of that is, a lot of these parks and your communities is seeing this, I think probably at the most firsthand, just gone into reservation system. Nope, you need a reservation and you need it a year out. And rec.gov opens, the reservation system opens, and usually within 1 minute, the campgrounds are booked.
Yep.
Or the park is, we're at capacity. Well, is that true? Like, is that, and it might be in some places, and we definitely want to preserve the resources, and that's of utmost importance. But in some places, it might be that first mile of very popular trail that is for sure overused and overcrowded. But maybe the campground, 20 miles in, isn't overused and overcrowded. And so we just need more sophisticated data. Saying that X amount of people go to Arches National Park is not telling us, are they biking? Are they hiking? Are they camping? And where is there more capacity for that? And if there's not more capacity, my favorite part about this bill is tell us where there is. So I want to go to Arches, I want to see Arches, and I want to camp. We're booked. Okay, well, someone should be telling me as a new user, Canyonlands is down the road. More Arches and Canyonlands, and there isn't Arches. Just the most beautiful, unique experience. And there's a full, there's an open campground. Like, why? That's the type of information that I think, especially the next generation, which is so used to like niche information that's coming at them they're not used to having to figure all this stuff out. Let's target that audience and say, hey, this place is full, and that's okay. But there's so many opportunities to explore the outdoors and camp and hike and climb and bike. And I think just saying no, which is the concept that you'll see a lot in this bill, is not an answer anymore for the recreation community. So on RV specific, expanding parking lots and campgrounds, modernizing campgrounds through public-private partnerships. So really opening up that public-private partnership opportunity to expand campgrounds. One of the coolest provisions is about gateway communities and really how even the private campground sector could benefit. And it's about planning for recreation and gateway communities and funneling some federal resources to communities who say, maybe we're near a park or a forest, but we want the community itself, the main street, to benefit from that. So not so much funding directly for that, federal entity, but thinking about how the community can benefit from people spending more time there. So they might come for the park, but how do we keep them there for 3 or 4 days and make sure they're spending money at the private campground and the local coffee shop and, the bike shop. And that's a really great one. There's going to be some pilots rolling out very soon. And like all of the provisions in this bill, I think there's like 20 provisions that came together, maybe 21, 22. They're all bipartisan and they're all bicameral. So every single bill was introduced with a Democrat and a Republican. And so that mapped up to this really beautiful kind of 1-for-1 Democrat and Republican opportunity for support.
Very good. Sherman, you look like you had a question.
Well, yeah, we're close to the home stretch here. Where going into 2025, or when might you suspect that we will see political action in Congress or elsewhere? Where's outdoor? Where's this whole conversation emerge?
You mean like the implementation of the bill, or
From where are we going to see headlines generated? From Congress?
I think Congress will be doing more in our area because of what we've seen. I think energy is going to be the #1 priority for the administration when it comes to lands and waters. That's just 100% the case.
Yeah.
But I would be really surprised if we don't hear from Secretary Burgum in the first 100 days about something he's going to do on recreation, whether it's a council or an executive order or a secretarial order or a convening. I'd be surprised if it doesn't come up in one of his top priorities, and if the recreation community through the roundtable aren't one of the first groups that he meets with.
Funny you say council, because I think that was certainly on your guys' agenda, was some sort of presidential council, correct?
Yep, it certainly was. And it maintains at the top of the agenda. I think we're hoping to have some kind of summit or convening maybe first even to understand the importance of a council. And now that the Explore Act got passed, we actually have the Federal Interagency Council codified, which is a huge goal. So we can kind of cross that one off. We already got there. So now that we have the federal entities of Army Corps and NOAA and Parks and BLM, Forest Service working together, what's the outside entity look like, and how can we come together and really talk about not tomorrow's funding for recreation, but the next 5, 10 years, 20 years, how are we preserving, protecting, and I think expanding on these really unique opportunities.
Okay. And Sherman is right. We're probably gone way beyond what we normally would, but there's just so much we could cover.
I hope there's still listeners.
That was very good, very enjoyable, and we look forward to talking with you again.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I hope that all my hypotheses are right, and if they're not, I will, apologize.
Jessica, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.